Yeah, I know. Well, good afternoon and welcome to December 9th Capital Investment Committee. We're here to start our meeting, and I'll call for order and then approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion for approval of the September 23rd, 2021 Capital Investment Committee?
Could you do roll call first, please?
Oh, sure.
Thanks.
We're still doing that? All right. All right, so roll call. We have Alderman Blanton.
Here.
Alderman Brown.
Here.
Alderman Hanson.
Here.
Alderman Berger here. All right, we'll go back to approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes for September 23rd, 2021 Capital Investment Committee meeting.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry, that needs to be a roll call vote, Manager?
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger, yes. Okay. Point of order, are we taking roll call on every?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
All right, okay. Know when that was. All right, I guess we are electing a chairman. So do I have a nomination for chairman?
I'd like to make a motion to elect Bev Berger as chairman of Capital Investment.
It's because I'm leading the meeting today. Right. All right, all in, roll call. Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger. Yes, why not? I'll regret that later. All right. Consider number 3.
Vice chair as well.
Oh, yeah, we do, I'm sorry. This, I would have said that, but it keeps jumping off the screen and like, where am I here?
I'm nominating Matt Brown as vice
All
chair.
right, do I have a second? I'll second that. I'll second that. All right, Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger, yes. Passes 4-0. Congratulations, Alderman Brown.
Congratulations, Alderman Burke.
You're on when I'm not here.
Hope you're very healthy.
He's in walking distance.
I do too, but that doesn't mean I might not be out of town. Okay. All right, we're to item number 3, consideration of draft City of Franklin Contract 2021-0328, a professional service agreement with AECOM for pump station evaluations for Rogershire, Hillsborough Road and Carters Creek Pike in the amount of $49,720. Michelle?
So this is the second year that we've done these, that we've contracted with AECOM to do the work. We have put $50,000 in our budget each year to evaluate our pump stations and the infrastructure that we have around those. The intent is to look at the pumps and make sure they're operating efficiently, look at any structural defects that we need to assess, and then the idea is that we then have time to put them in the budget cycle for next year. So this is kind of the second round of that, and we're going to slowly move through all of our pump stations.
All right, do I, before discussion, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion on this item?
So I would say
Blanton?
silly question, but I'd prefer to say stupid. So why are we on pump stations with such, like Rogershire's an established neighborhood?
So we work with our service division crews, the pump station maintenance technicians, to kind of evaluate ones that might have some troubles.
Okay.
So either the pump is not performing the way that it should be, or it's got some.
I mean, I get Carter's
corrosion
Creek
issues.
Pike, because that's kind of like off the beaten path, but with Rogershire, that was a surprise to me.
Yeah, so we've been working, it's kind of one of our initiatives to work more with the service division, the crews who are actually looking at these stations every day to kind of backtrack and do the capital improvement projects based off of what their input is.
That would take them offline from the pump station?
No,
and
not
put 'em-
take them offline, but just the evaluation part of it. So the
Okay.
folks who are looking at it every day help us determine which ones need to be looked at.
Understood. Thank you.
So there's not a timeline. There's not a timeline for doing those. It's if the team flags it as being, during their maintenance, they find something, then it gets into the queue? Or is it every couple of years you're checking?
So every year, we're going to try and do 3 stations.
Okay.
And so some of the newer ones that have, obviously just been brought online are more toward the bottom of the queue. These are some of the older ones that we're going to look at. And it takes about probably 6 to 8 months to do the evaluation, which if we approve them and, they'll get a notice to proceed in January. By 6 to 8 months, that'll be in time for the budget for, what's that, 22, 23. So,
All right, all in favor? Sorry, all in favor, Alderman Black.
Yes.
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 Thank you. And Alderman Berger, yes. Passes 4-0. I'm not going to get used to this roll call thing. Usually you don't do that in
Or
the...
the mic.
We had not done that in the committee meetings much. All right, so number 4, consideration of draft change order number 9 to City of Franklin, contract 217-0264 with Hewitt Infrastructure South Company for water reclamation facility modifications and expansion project. Michelle?
so on the heels of approving the rather large change order 8 that you'll be voting on next week, we wanted to bring this one up. So this is change order 9, and this one, as you can see from the attachments, is a pretty sizable credit. So the Headworks facility, which is the beginning of the plant, had some coating issues. So the paint that we had put on it had started delaminating. The cost of the inspection costs that the city upfronted those costs so we could ensure we had appropriate inspection. Hewitt is reimbursing us for that, which is what this change order is. And then there's some other credits as well. We had some allowances for in the bid item for miscellaneous, structural repairs that didn't end up being needed. So that covers this allowance too. So remember that when you vote on Tuesday.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. All in favor, Alderman Blanton?
Yes.
Alderman Brown?
Yes.
Alderman Hanson?
Yes.
Alderman Berger, yes. Thank you. All right. Let me get back to my agenda here. This is slow today. Number 5, consideration of draft in the City of Franklin contract 2021-0318, a professional service agreement with Heath Code and Davis for Forest Crossing number 1 and Riverview Pump Station upgrade projects in the not to exceed amount of $120,000 and 120,206.
So this is another, these are 2 other projects that we had in our budget as well. So Forest Crossing 1 and the Riverview Pump Station are both in the Forest Crossing subdivision, obviously. They're both older stations. They're can stations that are not really safe to enter. It's literally like a can that you've got to crawl into to access the controls. So this is bringing them, we're going to construct a new station that's kind of up to standards and safer. It's consistent. It's a consistent design with what we have on other stations. These we didn't do an evaluation on because we knew we wanted to replace these. There was no question about that with them, with the safety hazards. So this is the design. We had $200,000 budgeted for designs for both of those, and then Heathcote came back. Heathcote Davis came back cheaper. So obviously that's a plus for us doing them in bulk.
All right, do you have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Sure, second.
All right, any discussion on this, any questions? Go ahead.
Well,
Alderman Brown?
Unfortunately, it's a question on I saw on this one, they'll evaluate electrical hookup and all stuff. On the Hillsborough Road, can I just ask you, on the Hillsborough Road one, I know we run on a generator there. Is that not an opportunity to get that? Isn't there a big old giant generator sitting on the corner of Hillsborough and
Well,
On our pump
on our
station?
Yeah.
Let's see, there is, I don't think there's a generator for that one. Or I may be mistaken, though. There's 2 that we have kind of right close to there that pump from different areas. I can look into that farther, though.
It doesn't change anything on that. It was curious to saw in there that one of the evaluations they'll do is a hookup, but I'm pretty sure that Hillsborough one, just seems like to me, there's always a big piece of equipment sitting there.
We're going to want a backup generator when power goes out, so usually you're looking for redundancy in power supply, so when power goes out, you can, so it wouldn't surprise me if there is.
There may be, so if it's a larger station, it typically has a generator like the Red Wing Goose Creek station does. For some of the smaller ones, what we'll do is we'll just have a quick connect that we can easily access. We can bring a generator in that, we can rent one. So the evaluation will be whether it's got a quick connect. We also like to be able to hook up a pump in case the pumps go down. So it'll be evaluating if it's got that and where we could, add that in. So I can take a look at that though and get
I'm
back
just
to
curious
you.
about that corner. We've done a lot of work on that road. It looks beautiful now, it looks great, but that corner has always had, I just recall that corner always having a piece of giant equipment sitting right
Okay.
on it there before you hit Stroud, so I just was curious, that's all.
What is the
Yeah.
timeline to complete this?
That design. So the design should be completed, it would be, I get confused. So it would be the rest of this year, and then it's in the budget to be constructed or to be bid and awarded in the beginning of the fiscal year.
And so we'll be bidding and awarding it next year for construction next year?
By next year, July.
Right.
So next fiscal, yes.
Yeah, next
Yeah.
fiscal year. Okay, got it. Any other questions? All right, I'll take the vote. Alderman Blanton?
Yes.
Alderman Brown?
Yes,
Alderman Hanson?
Yes.
Alderman Berger, yes. All right.
we're gonna need you to change to a B last name.
Yeah, would you please do that?
Push, so we're good. Yeah.
You could do that. But Hanson. Number 6, consideration of draft City of Franklin Contract 2021-0321, a professional service agreement with CT Consultants for the design and right-of-way plans for the Church Street improvement projects from Columbia Avenue to First Avenue in Harpeth River at a lump sum cost of $598,000.
So this is a great project to be presenting, and really it's because it's starting right now in design. And what we did with the previous board was we looked at very preliminarily functional level plans and cost estimating and impacts to utilities, and the direction that we received from the board was to proceed forward with the design and underground the utilities. And so this professional services agreement will get us through the right-of-way set of design, which means we'll know 99% sure where all the utilities are going to go. We'll know all the impacts that it has to property owners. And from that point, we're able to then go out and buy right away. But usually before we go out and buy right away, we're going to pause and we're going to go out and have a public meeting and meet with all the impacted residents up and down the corridor and be able to tell them specifically what we're doing, what the impacts are to them as a property owner. And then assuming we have full support from property owners, Board of Mayor and Aldermen, we then come back with another agreement with this consulting company to go into that final design. And Jonathan shows the project up here. Really, again, a lot of our, we call them streetscape projects. They're really infrastructure projects. On this section of Church Street wasn't driven because we just simply wanted to go out and beautify the street. It's really driven because sanitary sewer is clay lines, needs replaced. The water line isn't looped as well as it could be, and it needs fixed. Atmos Gas Company needs to replace all their gas mains on this roadway. And then there is no stormwater infrastructure, very, very bad functioning stormwater infrastructure on this road. And so knowing all these factors is ultimately what led the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to fund this as a capital project and prioritize it. And we said, look, instead of us going through and taking a piecemeal approach of replacing utility after utility after utility, let's go in and do it all at one time, rebuild the roadway, and when we put it back together, we will probably do some level of enhancements to it. And we're going to underground the power through this corridor,
Yeah.
Assuming all goes as planned. But this is really that initial professional services agreement to move that into the next phase is what you're seeing. And if it's okay, I'll just cover item number 7 is also associated with this,
Go ahead.
which is really us, it's bringing on a special or a special consultant to help us identify and locate truly with accuracy where those underground utilities are. And why that is so important is when we get into construction, we want to be able to deliver the project in a certain time frame and not run into surprises. And through experience, and you learn the hard way, I've had a few projects where we didn't do as good of a job with that, and it's created major delays. So spending that additional money to do it is going to help us substantially deliver this project on time, on budget, and really know the true impacts. So I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Can I get a motion before discussion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Right.
Just to add to what Paul just said, the utility component is always the place that we spend the most time and can create the most areas for delay. So working smarter with that, having a better handle on those locations does help us be more dependable on project schedule. So this is a good thing. You saw this in another project a few weeks ago. We talked about some locating technology to help us with that. So you'll see us continue to work that in, because that is a place, not just us, but TDOT, others that work in these types of areas, that the utility component can really be what holds you up, and we want to try to avoid those delays if we can.
Well, we may be spending more money, but on the long term,
Yes.
it's less.
It should
because
save
we-
us time and money
because
long
we-
term, for
Yeah,
sure.
because then we get ourselves in a pickle. We've been there before. And the other thing is, into the beautification of the area, if we don't do the best job we can, especially at a downtown area, we get a lot of tourists and people. First of all, we require people to put utilities underground, so we should be requiring ourselves to do that. And then where it's located, it makes sense to do that. And I'm always in support of doing that when we can, and undergrounding and doing whatever we need to do to make it Alderman Brown. No.
I assume, I saw number 7.
Yeah.
I assume that all the times we're going to use this new technology, is it not beneficial for us to acquire the technology ourselves and train people?
We
Or the- go ahead.
are actually looking into that right now. So concurrently with this, we're doing that. So what we've done in the past is more traditional with Tennessee One Call system, where we actually call in, or required by law. Anytime you dig, even with this new technology, you're still required to call in to a service that's managed by Tennessee One Call with the state, and we're a part of that as a city, to call in and have the utilities traditionally located. But even with that, that service is only good as the information provided to the service by the utilities and the information maintained by the utilities. So what this does is goes into an additional level and brings in ground penetrating radar, and also will go out there and bore holes in the ground and physically lay eyes on what's in the ground. But what that also does is gives us an opportunity to learn from those consultants who do this for a living, since this is new to us as well. We know what they're doing, but we have not done this ourselves, aside from bits and pieces on projects. So we are looking at the technology to potentially bring that on-house, and that's a discussion we're going to have. It's budget time. We know that there's a potential for us to do this potentially, I'm using the word potential a lot here. Cheaper in-house. The caveat to that is, these firms do this for a living. They're going to be much quicker at this.
Sure.
When they come in to do something, they may take a month to do something very complicated. They have entire systems set up in-house to do this. They'll come in and do an entire project that'll take them a month to do. We have no staff set up to do this. While we can acquire the equipment drastically cheaper than what we could pay one consultant to do one project, we may have a staff member dedicated to doing something like this for months on end. So it's very much a process that we're going to learn as we use these consultants to come in. So it's still very much a savings for us on the front end, but as we're learning through this process, on the back end, we're also going to be acquiring, hopefully, as budget allows, the equipment and the personnel to be able to learn on the fly and be able to do some of these things in-house. Now, the larger projects, I don't know that we'll ever be able to have the personnel and staff and be able to justify doing that in-house. But some of the smaller projects, absolutely. We want to learn to be able to do it in-house.
My bet is,
Sorry, it's frustrating.
that's okay. Because my bet is, we have probably more redevelopment that we're going to be looking at. I mean, there's only so much space left to build on, so we're going to be doing a lot more redevelopment. We do have infrastructure that needs updated. We know there's a lot in downtown. I doubt that this is probably one of many future places where we don't really know what's under that ground. So I just figured we're going to keep seeing them. But you're right, time and human capital and all that included.
Absolutely.
So
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
So number one, is this the beginning phase for us to start working on our problems down Folk Street? When we had that flooding problem there, we said we can't really fix this until we address Church Street.
Yes, ma'am. This is the initial phase. This puts the trunk line in. If you recall, there's really nothing up Parkview, that whole area, folks. The complaints we've heard for many, many years over there, there's really no infrastructure to drain that to the river in any direction.
Sure.
And the initial thing we needed was to have the infrastructure or trunk line to drain that to the river. With this project, that puts that trunk line in, and that trunk line being potentially I'm using the same potential word again. It's a 60-inch.
The word of the day, Jonathan.
But it's potential. We all have potential. The projects have potential. It's a 60-inch trunk line is what we've shown to be the preliminary idea there, is a 60-inch line. So going in there and digging up the roadway, goes back to what Paul just said. We know we're replacing water, sewer, gas. We're going to dig up that road like a canyon. So if we're going to dig up the road, we're going to put a 60-inch line, so a 5-foot, tall line. We've got staff members that can walk through that without ducking over. So we might as well fix everything else that's, associated with the roadway while we're there. So yes, it does start that process. Once
Okay.
we get that initial phase in, we can actually start connecting upstream from there.
So my other question is, and I'm on the fence as to whether I love or don't love, and I call them bump outs. I'm seeing in some of these plans, specifically right here on page 3, where it's 3rd Avenue and Church Street, if I've got my bearings correct, that is Biscuit Love, number 32. Is that correct? Or is that the church? I'm just trying to make sure where the back end of the courthouse is. That one driveway entrance, are those cuts that are going to be flat, or are they going to be bump outs
So you're on
with
sheet,
landscaping? If you go to page number 3 of,
As a church.
okay. But to the west of that intersection where you see that kind of like cut out, are you with me yet?
yeah, it sticks out a little bit.
This right here?
So are those bump outs, or are those just flat marked,
That's
lining.
designed as a bump out, is the way that is.
and it's right by the courthouse back drive?
It's back to the courthouse back drive, kind of where the Sally Port is to the back of the courthouse.
I just know that parking's a premium there, and I know we've got sight lines and there's reasons for doing all that. But, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm in a love-hate relationship with them because sometimes they're maintained well, sometimes they're not. There's a lot of big truck traffic that comes through there, and I can see, I mean, we have that problem at my job, people trying to clear those curbs, and then the concrete crumbling. And if you keep going on to page 4, it looks like there's another one. I would love to know, and it's hard because this is a page by page, where we are staging or situating all those, and what the mindset was for the choice, for how many there are and where they are.
Now,
Those are easy to take out and remove as we move forward. So what I would say is let's get the design done, and then when we do the public meeting and present it, if people don't want it or we want to modify that, that's something very easy.
I feel
and
like it's a
simple to
trend
change.
that's happened in the last 20 years, and in some places I think it's great, but just considering the through town traffic that happens there, and if you think about deliveries to the back end of Biscuit Love, or you think about, I mean, the opportunity for those to just get obliterated pretty much soon after they're installed, I don't know that they're always effective. I know it's beautification.
and there are some cases, like on the 4th page, I hope this is the one you're talking about, right there at 3rd, where you turn off of 3rd onto Church. Sorry, it's not quite working for me here. But the one you're seeing here is kind of,
I don't see one on page 4, Jonathan.
it's actually just striping in that particular case.
Yeah, striping makes
Yeah, so
sense.
that, and the reason we did striping and not a bump out there is
Sight
because we
lines.
know, well, in that case, we know trucks do turn wide there and they would hit something,
Mm-hmm.
because there actually used to be parking there, and we actually saw a lot of side swipes there.
Yeah, I remember when we started cherry picking which parking we wanted to stay and which we didn't, but I would just personally like to look at those a little bit closer when we get further
And we
in
will.
design.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
We can
think-
assess to parking impact, and then if there are site distance, how we look at that. These are four-way stops that it's coming up to. How do we look at that?
And the reason the one near the Sally Port was put there was really, we know
protect
we.
the Sally Port
It was to
project, right?
protect that entrance, to
Yeah.
keep people from parking close to the entrance. And the only way to really totally prevent someone from parking there is to extend the curb out. That's why that one was put
Well,
there.
and in some instances, as I've seen around town, it defaults to the property owner. I've got a really good friend that owns a place on 3rd Avenue, and theirs are not maintained on a regular basis, so they throw seeds out. But it's like, there's that gray area of like, I know it's city, but do they take care of it or do they not? So I will, but, I've decided, my mom had surgery, I can't deal with it. So there needs to be a consistent plan for how all those are addressed, because we want them to be what they were meant to be. If they're going to have plant life in them, they need to be maintained. So I think we need to be really careful about where we put those and where we don't. So that was it's a short meeting, so I feel I could talk a little bit more.
And the other thing you pointed out, which I think is really important, in this downtown area where it's very tedious to get around the corners, those trucks hit those all the time, and I don't want them in disrepair all the time. So there's some of those corners that we're looking at that, to me, don't make sense to put them there. It's tight, it's a tight space, and then we're, maybe.
Well, there's some on Fourth Avenue that I think have not really served their purpose, but.
Yeah, and then it sometimes will, impede the parking. So, yeah, you have some issues there, so.
It's all
All
good
right.
feedback, and we'll certainly take a look at it.
Yeah, I think Randy's brought up some really good points on that. Okay, we need to take a vote. Let's vote on number 6 first. Alderman Blanton? Alderman Berger. Too many Bs. Too many. Alderman Brown? Yes. Alderman Hanson?
Yes.
Alderman Berger, yes. Okay, and we'll take a vote on number 7, the consideration. Oh, yeah. Well, I guess we do have a motion. Let me read that item because it was not read before. Number 7 is consideration, just dropped off my page again, doesn't like to stay up. Consideration of draft City of Franklin with contract 2021-0242. It was a professional service agreement with the surveying and the mapping, LLC for subsurface utility engineering for the Church Street Improvement Project at no cost to exceed $120,000, 120,206.40. We've just discussed that, so I'll take a motion. We need a motion on approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Alderman Hanson, Alderman Brown. Let me take the vote. Alderman Blanton? Yes. Alderman Brown?
Yes.
Alderman Hanson?
Yes.
And Alderman Berger is yes. Thank you. All right, we'll go to number 8. A consideration draft of Amendment 1 to the City of Franklin Contract 2020-0124, a professional service agreement with Kimberly Horn and Associates for the final design and limited construction and administration of the Harlansdale main barn at a cost not to exceed $173,500. Ms. Clayton.
Thank you, Michelle. Good afternoon. So what's before you is a professional service contract. This is for the main barn at Harlansdale. We had a professional service agreement to do 60% of the work up to this point instead of 100%, so we understood what the cost repercussions would be. It also included some infrastructure of an additional parking on site and utilities. So that work has been complete. This is the next phase to take us into late spring, if approved, and so that we may bid this by summer.
Second.
All right. So the hotel motel tax pays for this on this part?
Yes, ma'am. So
How's that looking?
So
Hotel
far-
motel sort of took a dive, so.
right. So far, we had money set aside that this project was approved a couple of years ago within the capital projects. So it is fully funded.
It is
And-
fully.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, it's good to hear. All right, we'll take a vote. Alderman Blanton? Yes. Alderman Brown?
Yes.
Alderman Hanson?
Yes.
And Alderman Berger, yes. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move to item number 9. Get it up. All right, consideration of draft amendment 2 to the City of Franklin Contract 2019-0376, professional service agreement with Barge Design Solutions for the design of Bicentennial Park project, a lump sum cost increase of $41,500.
Thank you. So this is a
Clayton.
professional service agreement. As you know that we had to take down the rest of the structure, so we need to redesign. We had snow back in February of last year. We had a partial collapse, and so we knew we were redesigning that. But because of the structural integrity, we had to go ahead and take it down this past summer. So these funds will go for that redesign, and so we're ready to then move forward to bid this project.
Move for approval with the question.
Second.
Alderman Blanton?
Yes. So I know we had the wonderful gift of being able to use the old Durango boot and make it be like quasi-historic. So as we move forward, are we going to try to replicate what was there so that it has that feel of what we've always envisioned it to be, or
Yes,
you going to
so-
go in a whole different direction?
No, it needs to go back to what the Durango booth looked like. There's some design areas that we've enhanced so that we don't have what happened last winter with the snowfall. We don't usually get that much snow and
I know.
ice, but you have to plan for that. But historic zoning, we've already gone before historic zoning with this project, and they are let's keep what it used to look like as much as possible. It was industrial, so they
Sure.
don't really consider it from
Yeah.
a historic standpoint like you would Harlansdale or an Eastern
Right, right,
Plant.
right.
But they do like the integrity staying.
But here's my
complementary.
question, since we don't have that rooftop, so to speak, anymore, is there a way to kind of fudge on the footprint?
Yeah.
Because, and maybe expand it, because we have the opportunity to not have to be
Yeah.
stuck within what we had left. I mean,
One of the things we are still using, though, is the actual slab of the
Concrete.
structure, so we're still using that. There are some other things that get triggered once you remove the slab. So we're
I'm
still
not saying
using-
remove it, I'm saying
Add
add
to it.
on.
Yeah.
The other,
There could be like
But it-
a quasi shed, kind of like, quasi is my word for the day.
That's,
potential.
we're in the,
Potentially.
you're in the same.
No, but if you think,
Yeah,
but if
potentially.
you think about, say, here's the frame of the old
Yeah.
whatever. So maybe the footprint comes out, but it's not necessarily used for the
Same
same
height.
purpose, but it gives you almost like what we
Step
talked
down.
about, a stage area.
Yes.
So you've got that, maybe a somewhat overhang that allows you to have more girth within what you had footprint-wise
What are we
earlier.
doing?
Almost like a run-in shed attached to a pole barn.
there
Yeah,
was.
yeah. So that's a great analogy.
Yeah, there you go.
There was some of that already included in the original design, and we looked at it as a team and as a staff and felt like the size of it was good and was going to work for what we needed it to. I would say that if we wanted to really take a step back, you'd be pretty much throwing away that entire design and reevaluating, but the
Girl,
original
It's been how
design,
many years now? I mean, come
Yeah.
on.
the original design,
Well,
the original design had some additions like
so you
the
kind of see the
stage and
picture
pergola.
Look at that.
behind us is
Yeah.
that's the slab, and you can see where you had the ramp. It's like an L. All of that area is now being included as part of the building. So we did expand the,
Okay.
yeah. So to get back,
I just wondered if there was an opportunity that we could realize because we don't have to work within the same constraints.
absolutely.
Do we look at the?
And is it really historic anymore if it's gone?
I don't think it's historic.
No,
It was never
not-
historic.
No, not
No.
considered. It was more about history of what was there
I mean-
versus
Having some connection.
having some back
It
to
is,
it.
sometimes is that important, sometimes maybe not. But if we, okay, we went back to the original design. I mean, we were talking about this in 2005. And I'm like, okay, so what about those original designs that had some extra buildings to it or extra space?
We,
What are they going?
that's what's in this design now. So we've
gonna be
we've done a
working with that?
redesigns in the last couple of years. And so we were ready to come last year
Right.
to bid this project that included all of that.
Okay. They had
But
that in there.
unfortunately, then we had the collapse and.
Okay, all right.
So that's where that came
Okay,
into
so
play.
you still have those?
We still have all of that.
Okay, good. I just didn't want those taken out. I thought they were pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anybody else? Alderman Brown.
I would just say, from what I remember from the last design, I think I saw within the last year, I think it was really, actually, there was a simplicity to it. And for as much as this has been for a long time, and boy, it'd be sure great to put something there. I think there was some really unique usage. I like the idea of making it a little bit expanded, but I also liked how simple we were trying to make something happen there.
Price tag is, it ain't very simple.
Well, I understand that, but it'd be nice to try to, I would hate to throw it all away and start over, because getting this done would be
And
great to
that's,
do.
and that's really what this
Can't
does.
afford
It
to do
actually-
that
Yes,
It
no.
allows us to put a very similar structure back, because obviously you can still get prefabricated metal buildings. But the PSA specifically allows us to tweak that fabricated structure to take away some of the issues we had with the original. And we were working around certain issues of the old structure to fit it in with what Parks needed to do with it.
Yay.
Yes.
Yay. Yay doesn't even
We're no longer
describe
having,
it.
we're no longer having to retrofit the old building, is basically what it amounts to.
Somebody walks by it every day.
Okay. Where are we? We need a vote. We need a vote. Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger, yes. Had no votes so far. Amazing. Okay, we are at the number 10, capital projects dashboard and status update. So does anybody want to give a rundown on that first, or highlight any things, and then we'll take questions?
I will highlight the Southeast Park, so we're still working, and as you'll see on the screen there, we started, the bridge beams are set for the entry bridge across the Harpeth River, and today, they poured the first sections of the actual concrete deck of the bridge, so we've got a few aerial photos of that.
Cool.
So they poured quite a bit of concrete today. I think it was 100, this is right off Carruthers, correct, so all the steel. Oh, you're good. So all the steel is set, all the
Where
beams
is
are
this
set,
at?
and actually, as you can see on the far side,
To the Southeast Park.
Oh, it is the access,
Get you
okay.
better
Hold
view
on.
there.
It takes you from Carruthers across the river to the south.
So what
Oh,
you're
okay.
seeing on the far side, they started on the actual park side. The gray you're seeing is where they're actually pouring the concrete deck of the bridge. So they're working on that, and we'll continue working on that the
Wow, I
next
didn't know they were
week
that
or so.
far. I was down there. I was down there the other day and saw all this work being
We
done.
need warm weather and no rain.
Getting done as
Oh,
much as we
we're
can.
getting a lot of rain
That-
coming in.
Not to get in the weeds, but the other day, just some information transferred. I'd asked the mayor about this. He's gone. On the Southeast Park, the narrative says that there'll be 5 multi-purpose fields, and I went, I thought it was 10 or 11. So what happened? And was that a typo, or can you?
No, it's phasing.
Phasing.
So
Okay, I was
it's
going,
phasing.
wait a minute.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there's square athletic fields that are taking place. So our football program's going in, most likely lacrosse, but the first phase is only the 5 fields, which
Okay.
will have an artificial turf and then regular turf fields. And then the second phase of that project, along with the first phase, will be an inclusive playground, walking trails, facilities, and that type of thing. And then the second phase will be the other ball fields and some other amenities within.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. I was like, I don't
Yep,
remember
there
much
you go.
well, but I was like, wait a minute.
Hopefully, drivers are enjoying driving Mackatcher
Oh,
Parkway.
my gosh.
We've heard about it, and the request for so many years, and I know they're still out there working. They're working on several punch
Yeah.
list items now, so there's still barrels, there's still workers, so please be careful when you're out there.
And we're adjusting signal timing as we go. too,
Yeah,
as we're
our
seeing-
POC's constantly working on
Yeah.
signal timing.
So we're
That's something
looking
they
at
never drop.
how the
Yeah.
patterns are really working. We're also tracking traffic data.
Yes.
And other aspects of the community to see how this is changing traffic patterns.
Good.
So we'll learn a lot from that,
Yes.
but I'll just tell you anecdotally, I'm seeing a difference commuting
Downtown.
from here to where I live out in Founder's Point from downtown. I always went a different route as opposed to taking Bridge Street if I went before 6 o'clock. Now it's significantly better in terms of the volume and the way it flows.
Yeah, I can
So-
actually tell you that Adam's keeping up with it on basically a week-by-week basis to see what the traffic patterns have changed. And the good thing is we've got the adaptive signal project that's operational and complete out in the Cool Springs area.
Yeah.
So one of the main sections that's seeing a lot of traffic increase is Cool Springs Boulevard, because that's one of your direct connection points from Mackatcher to
And
the
then they're
interstate.
using Mackatcher.
So
yeah.
they're using Cool Springs Boulevard increasingly from that
That
new
was
section of
gonna
Good thing
Mackatcher.
it's,
That was
So,
gonna be
so
the
you're
problem.
seeing now, even within that first week they opened it on, was it a Thursday or Friday? Or it was a Monday?
Monday morning.
It was a Monday, so from a Wednesday before they opened it to the next Wednesday, so really just 3 days worth
Yeah.
of data, the whole week worth. I think Adam told me the traffic was up 5% in just 3 days worth of looking at a whole week on Cool Springs Boulevard. So that's, I know 5% doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you're only looking at 3 days of a whole week,
Sure.
that's quite a bit of traffic increase.
Here's what I'm concerned about. Not so much the traffic, it gets on Mackatcher there and goes down and then gets on Cool Springs in the morning, because it's usually the biggest traffic influx is before all those stores over there are opening. Before your restaurants, your stores open. But in the evening is where I'm really worried about. How everybody's coming off Cool Springs Boulevard. Are we having gridlock and a bottleneck from Mallory Lane to Mackatcher?
We've been anticipating it, and we're
Yeah.
monitoring and watching.
So I'd like to see some stats on that a few months afterwards. Yeah,
And right now is a little bit hard with
What
the
are we
holiday
gonna do
season,
to
because
help
all the
that?
retail up there too, so the traffic patterns aren't as they typically are.
horrible in
So
December,
we're gonna
yeah.
continue to look at this into January, and at some point, we'll either bring it back for presentation, or Eric can send it out in his
I
weekly
would-
updates.
I would wait. You can do all you want now, But in January, you need to do another one.
Yeah.
To take really look, because that's going to be a different whole pattern together.
And
Yeah.
that's what we generally had looked for, was to wait till people are getting used to MacHatcher, taking MacHatcher,
Yeah.
understanding what their new commute patterns are going to be. We were going to give it a little bit of time to settle in
Yeah.
and see what that was going to be in the new year.
And they get through the holidays.
That's correct.
Yeah. Alderman Brown.
Two things. One, on your note, and certainly because we have a couple new developments that are going to be coming in at that intersection too.
Right.
That right turn continues to be one of my biggest pet peeves in this city because everyone stops.
Yeah.
We have got to figure out a way
Which
to
right
keep people.
one on going on
It is
Mallory?
driving me crazy. So before those developments
the
come in
Mac
and increase traffic, I hope we solve that.
Oh,
Everybody
from
just
Cool
stops.
Springs Boulevard onto
Onto
MacHatcher.
MacHatcher.
We've got a few ideas that can be implemented there to help with
Great.
that. Again, a lot of that is exactly what was just said, is drivers need to pay attention there. We do have signage there. There's some additional things we can do to draw attention to it, but in the end, it's going to be, people have to pay attention.
Yeah. It drives me crazy.
Yes.
Especially
when
I'll
there's-
acknowledge that is a pet peeve.
Yes, and there's even a receiving lane that's about a quarter of a mile
Oh,
long there
it's
to keep people
forever.
in it.
You could land an aircraft on that
Yes.
lane and people still want to cut straight over.
There is a sign leading up to it that says.
I want to
It's
see
behind
a
a tree a
flashing
lot.
light that says, "You, move it." And I want one there at, coming off on Cool Springs from the interstate, going right on Mallory, north on Mallory. I want to, you, that's
Yes.
you, move it. I just want to say that, just move it. Because there's that dedicated lane. It's the same thing you're talking about.
Oh, I'm telling you.
No, it's so
Second thing
bad.
was, I asked you before we started, but just on the left turns,
Makes me
coming off of the new MacHatcher and onto
Hillsborough
Hillsborough
Road.
there, just where those left lanes, I did get a call on it,
Yes.
so I thought I would ask you while we're here, you can answer to that.
Yeah, you'll notice at Hillsborough Lane, there's a couple, at Hillsborough Road and MacHatcher, there's a couple of left turn lanes that are barreled off, and it looks like the we call them chicken tracks, the track markings through the intersection are a little too close together. That's because they are a little too close together. The subcontractor who put the striping down just got a little too close together with those. They're gonna come back, they're gonna pull that striping back up, and they're gonna replace it and put them back down properly. When they do that, they'll open those lanes back up.
Great, perfect, thank you.
Are there any projects that are really behind or ahead in this?
Nothing that's really, no.
Significant?
No, nothing that's significant,
Okay, all
one
right.
way or the other.
Everything seems to be moving?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, if there's any other questions, we'll go to 11.
Can I just respond to your question, because I've
Yes, ma'am.
been
Sure, go
talking.
ahead.
So there was, they were bypass pumps at that pump station.
Oh.
Because we were, there was one of the footers on one of the pumps had broke. And so
Mm.
Xylem is our, we rent pumps from them quite a bit, and we had to do a short period of bypass pumping.
Got it.
And so those have been, they should be removed by now.
Gotcha, okay.
So
That would
actually-
explain why that was there, gotcha.
I think on the 14th, you'll see an emergency requisition for those rental pumps for that exact reason.
Okay, thank you for.
Okay, so number 11, proposed 2022 Capital Investment Committee meeting schedule, and we can all open that up and see the calendar. Is there any questions about that? Just want to point out, I noticed it's the orange one. and
Yeah,
we
because I thought it
usually-
was green at first. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
I can't do
It's
1
orange.
o'clock.
Yeah, so we normally meet the 4th Thursday, so on the 20th, we're meeting in January.
That's incorrect. You're meeting on the 27th.
We're meeting on the 27th? Okay, so that's been
Yeah, that
changed.
was an error there.
Okay.
And finance is actually going to meet on the 20th because there's a conflict
Okay.
on the 13th.
So that's a correction. So
yeah.
it's the 27th of January, I just want
Yep.
to point that out.
And is 3:30 an okay time for everybody?
3:30, still all right? All right,
Okay.
and then I just want to point out to everyone else here, Alderman Brown, Alderman Hanson, that in July, we don't have a second meeting on the 4th Tuesday. So we will, we usually move that up, that CIC, to the 3rd Thursday.
If you would like, we
Is
can
that-
adjust that.
Well, we don't, we normally would be meeting the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month. So the 26th of July, we do not meet. So do you want to meet the 21st or the 14th? What are you talking about moving it up?
I don't have the calendar in
Is
front
that
of me,
because
so.
if someone takes off, we know we're not going to be here?
Yeah, we try to align this meeting with the
Mm-hmm.
joint conceptual workshop so that you come to one group of meetings and can stay instead of going back and forth.
When is
So,
their meeting on July?
That is when, okay. It's probably that 4th Thursday, which is the 28th. Thank you, sorry.
Well, I would, honestly, I would prefer prefer if we could do a CIC on the 14th, if that is not too early. Because that way we have 2 full weeks
I agree with
of
that.
no meetings, and people really want to plan, they can plan.
That gives you that July
Yeah, you
break a
know,
little better.
So I would ask that we move it to the 14th, if that's possible.
I'll
We should
second
be able
that.
to do that.
All
Okay,
right.
yeah, we can,
If
we'll let
need
you know
be.
if there's any
Yeah,
conflict, but
let
that,
us know.
that seems to make sense.
I just,
Yep,
yeah.
sure.
that just muddy the waters up there. And then, again, in November, we have no meeting, according to this, unless you need to call it, correct?
That's, I think because of the holiday.
Well, we're meeting on the
and-
27th.
And the,
We don't, you really don't need to meet, because you have the 27th of October. We roll right in there, and then you have 4 weeks, and, well, then you have the 8th. of
again,
December.
we're aligning with the Planning
Yeah.
Commission and Joint Conceptual, and they combine October,
Yeah.
and then they do an earlier
Yeah.
November, December combined
December.
meeting. So,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. I think that's good. Anybody have any other comments? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, second. Alderman Blanton.
Oh, yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson. Alderman Berger. Yes, we are adjourned.
Very good.
Thanks.